Okay. Okay. Kim, should we begin? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. I have been having conversations with like different registrars and advisors for the past few weeks, and we have been very focused on emergency mode, right? Like putting down fires mode. And we wondered, like, as schools are now thinking of making strategic initiatives on campus and thinking about student engagement, uh, not just for the next month, but more like for the next year, what are the topics that would interest the, you know, the the higher ed community? And given Stellic's involvement and investment in degree audit and what we have been hearing from our conversations, we thought one important question is there an opportunity there, right? I think like what COVID has done, in my opinion, for the most part, like it, there are many areas where it hasn't really been a disruptor, but more like an accelerant. Things that were supposed to happen or they were happening slowly, and suddenly they just like burst and has started happening a lot faster. And I think student engagement and retention is one of those areas. And so there is an opportunity for us to think about like what does retention and engagement look like in the new reality. Virtual advising is a thing. Like it became a necessity in last semester and probably will be for fall. What remains to be seen is how much can we transition out of virtual advising in a while. So do we have technologies in place and systems in place that can assist virtual advising? And student engagement becomes more important than ever. And I think degree audit could play a very important role in achieving both of those initiatives. So for us, it's an opportunity, and I want to hear from our panelists how they think about that and what they have done on their campuses to achieve that. Before I introduce our panelists, just some basic housekeeping. The session is recorded. I hope. Yes, it is recorded. And we'll make it interactive as we are asking these questions from our panelists. We also would like our audience to participate in those questions. So we'll pull up polls at different times as those questions come up. We are taking questions through Q&A box, so please feel free to ask any questions. And at the end of the session, we will answer those questions as much as we can. And after the session, we will share the recording with you all. Okay, so let's start. Let's introduce our panelist. We have Tim Ebner on the call. He has been a registrar for more than 40 years, I think. So definitely understands what registrar does and the importance of their role on campus. I'm excited. I mean, just excited to hear his perspective at a large public university of how they think about retention efforts and things like that. Then we have Kim. Kim also has been a registrar for a very long time at University of Nebraska, Kearney. And Kim has gone through, over the last 25 years, gone through 3 different implementations of degree audit. So I'm curious to learn her thoughts about like how the transitions went and how did the registrar's office play a role in terms of having successful implementation of those systems and the gaps that lie between those 3 different systems. Then we have Emily. She's an assistant dean of students at University of Chicago. University of Chicago College has recently transitioned from a PeopleSoft system into a Stellic degree audit and planning system. So I am curious to hear her thoughts on why they made that transition, how was the transition like, and how has that impacted on retention and engagement efforts. And then maybe I should have introduced myself first. I'm Sabih. I'm founder and CEO of Stellic. It's a platform that I built as a student a few years ago because I felt like the systems that existed out there were not really addressing students' engagement needs. So that's our panel. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Let's start. with the outline of this. So how can institutions enhance their degree audit for better retention rates? I want to hear the background of what is the role of degree audit in retention from each of our panelists first. And in our opinion, just speaking with many different institutions, we think for a successful retention impact of a degree audit, there are like 3 or 4 phases that a university has to go through. The first phase is data integrity. So I want to talk about that. How do we make sure that our degree progress reports and pathways are very accurate and trustworthy? Then we talk about how do you create engagement within the community for systems like these and initiatives around degree progress. We'll then talk about reporting. Once we have users engaged, what kind of data can we leverage from it? And then what does the future hold for us? Like what are the areas of opportunities that we all can work towards in making these systems better? So let's start with the background. I'm gonna start with Kim. Kim, I mean, you and I have been talking for like what now, 6 months, just learning about like your vision for what a degree audit should be. So I wanna start by just understanding, like, in your opinion, what is the role of a degree audit on campus?
Sabih, I will say that on our particular campus, again, we've had degree audit on our campus for over 25 years. And the current product that we're using is Degree Works. And that has been implemented at least for the past 10 years. For us, the degree audit is critical. We do have mandatory advising for all of our undergraduate students. And so as they meet with their advisor, whether it's a faculty advisor or staff in the advising center, they do review their audit as a method to help them plan for the future. However, in the registrar's office, we wanted to take that a little bit further. As a campus, we experimented with some software to help find students who were in trouble, perhaps, to assist advisors in tagging those students. But because it was an extra piece, it wasn't integrated into our normal mode of business for our advisors, for example. It was one more thing that they had to learn, and therefore it never fully reached a critical mass in terms of usage on our campus. But the degree audit is incorporated. I mean, every portal, faculty and student portal, advising portal, has direct access to that. And so after that first attempt failed because there wasn't enough buy-in to really give us any good prospective data, then we moved to enhancing the degree audit system. And so from the registrar's perspective, what we felt was important was that all of the students had a planner, if you will, a tool that would tell them what courses to take in what order. Mm-hmm. And so while our degree audit, Degree Works came with a planner tool, it wasn't very sophisticated and it was very difficult to use from an end user perspective. So we started by identifying critical courses, and what you'll see on the screen is an example of a 8th semester 4-year plan. We worked with each of the academic departments to identify what their critical courses were, and then we filled in the blanks with electives. And you can find this information not only built as a part of the degree audit, but also on our university website. So students have a place to go as they're kind of shopping around for various majors to see what the 8th semester plan would look like. They can click on those critical courses and see a better explanation, of course, description, prerequisites, those kinds of things. Our goal ultimately is to have all of the advisors and students fill out a 4-year plan on their degree audit. So when they come in as incoming freshmen, and in the past, of course, they came in person during the summer to our new student enrollment, not necessarily the case this summer, but even if they do our online orientation, they, before they ever come to that, we apply the template for their particular major. So as a student applies to UNK and they indicate, for example, I'm going to be a biology major, we take that biology template, that 8th semester plan, and we apply that directly to that student's degree audit. So when they hit the door, they already have this skeleton of a plan already built. and then they would meet with their academic advisor, and then over the first semester of their freshman year, they would fill in all the blanks. They would fill in all the electives, all the general education courses they plan to take, so that they would have a very complete plan, not only for the student to follow, but once those are built, then the registrar's office, the institution, can pull data from those plans to help departments in future planning and to assist when students are falling off track, if you will.
Makes sense. That's super helpful. And so tell me a little bit about the effort required on that initiative. I mean, this sounds great, but tell me more about the effort that went into this.
Well, it was a 2-year process to build these plans, not necessarily because, you know, it was complicated in terms of identifying what courses should be taken, but that part was fairly easy, working with the departments and identifying those critical courses. The real problem was working within the degree audit, because this particular audit that we have is not very user-friendly in terms of the back-end programming. So you literally have to have a specialist, someone in the office who's dedicated to learning the software and understanding how to configure that. So you can't have, for example, our academic departments, you know, would not be able to sit down and build those plans, the templates that we have identified. So not only was, you know, was that a challenge for us, but then in terms of once the plans are built and the data's out there, extracting that from the system also became a major challenge.
Right. And we'll talk about that in a second too.
Yeah.
Great. Tim, I know University of Utah has taken a very interesting perspective on what major maps mean. So let's start with understanding what's the role of a degree audit on your campus, and then we talk about your major maps project.
Very good. Thank you, Sabih. And like Kimra, we here at the University of Utah also have a robust degree audit that simply helps students identify courses taken and courses completed toward earning that degree. So we use college source products. The U Achieve product is what we're using as the degree audit. However, here within our undergraduate studies department, they have created the major maps, which are really a concept that goes much broader and much farther than simply taking courses, planning them for a particular semester, and then putting them in a shopping cart and trying to, you know, just simply have courses completed to earn a degree. Conceptually, what we're trying to do is have students understand what this entire experience as an undergraduate and as, you know, as students in an environment that is trying to create a very holistic person, someone who can, you know, end with a degree from the University of Utah in a way that they've taken full advantage of everything that we have to offer at this very large research concentrated universities. So major maps really is a proposition to help design and create, you know, for students an orientation that will help identify and plan and navigate and then eventually summarize all of the different experiences they've had here at the University of Utah. So we're trying to get them to, you know, think beyond just courses, but to really think experientially. What am I doing? What can I grab? What can I, you know, participate in, both for, you know, courses in classrooms and laboratories, but also those extra and co-curricular activities. And I think basically my staff, once we, you know, we had a team within undergraduate studies for which we knew they actually put in a application for some seed money that was being offered by the university and some innovative ideas. And so they came up with the concept and they, in full disclosure, they worked with EAB. EAB, I think, is the creator of the major map concept. So that's not unique to the University of Utah. But so what we're going beyond that, though, is really creating a major map for every academic discipline, every major, and then really giving them a full outline of all of the different opportunities. So when you look at courses and community and knowledge and skills, transformation. You know, we're all about that transformative experience. We're trying to make sure that every one of our students has a transformative, you know, individual experience, whatever that might be, in all sorts of different areas. Mm-hmm. And so once we in my office heard that, you know, that undergraduate studies was doing this planning and conceptualization for kind of concepts,
right? And
then they wanted to eventually integrate degree audit data into this. Right. That, you know, piqued my interest, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, we've got to be at the table with them, because we don't want to spin off a separate database that we're dumping degree audit information to and from. So we now are hand in hand in a partnership in the very early stages of conceptualizing how, you know, how are we going to do all of this? How can we develop a degree audit that is inclusive of courses and classes and completion of degree requirements, but more importantly, the partnership on the co-curricular and the extracurricular activities. So I can't tell you what that's going to look like right now, but we are now in a partnership. We're part of the team, and we're, you know, really trying to think outside of the box. Just like Kim is saying, we want to be able to both plan for courses and then have those courses available, because that's always the challenge we have is, are we giving students what they need when they need it? And so we have all sorts of outcomes that we want to be part of this. We've got to now develop a way to get to that. So I applaud Kim and the work that they're doing, you know, with just the planning to be able to say, here's courses and so forth. Now we need to make sure that we're offering these courses at the times and days and blah, blah. But then we also want to get our students to plan for all of the extra within this tool as well. And then to be able to quantify that. So we most likely will be expanding our degree audit beyond just courses and degree requirements that meet the baccalaureate requirements, but also how have I done all these other things? And then at the end of the day, how can we provide that to you in a nice, pretty package so you can go tell everyone else, graduate schools and employers and so forth, this is all the wonderful things I've done at the University of Utah, beyond courses, beyond grades, but in the totality of what we're offering.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think like that talks about like future and the reporting, like how impactful the reporting can be beyond just looking at the, you know, the course demand and things like that. I think that's wonderful. Emily, so I guess for me, that I'll start off with a very simple question. The session is titled that how can we use degree audit for retention? University of Chicago has a 99% retention rate for a first year student. So I'm going to start off by asking, like, why is this conversation relevant for U Chicago? Why did they change the degree audit in the middle of that process? And help me understand the role of degree audit this is playing on your campus, especially from your advising background.
Yeah, absolutely. So to attack all those questions, I guess I'll put it in a little bit of context for U Chicago. So I'm in the academic advising office in the college. And as far as the role of degree audits on campus, historically, there's the college and the advising office has been the one really touching degree audits and using it to track progress and to do that, to use it for graduation clearances. And the past couple iterations of degree audits we've had has always been very strictly administrative. It's something that advisors would have access to, but not necessarily students. So it would be used as an advising tool. So when students meet with advisors, they can sit down, look at the degree audit and do some planning. And that was something that we wanted to think about, is this the best use of advisors' time? Are students getting the most use out of it? Especially as, we were seeing our class size growing, wanting to make sure that advising was something that was not just transactional, not just what's the next class, and that it was these more holistic conversations. And so with that in mind, something that we really wanted to do and that we were starting to get demand from students was something that was actually student facing, which, makes a lot of sense. Students are going to want to see how they're progressing, using a program, not just Excel spreadsheets and tracking it that way. And so that was kind of our most recent move, bringing on Stellic for not only as a degree audit, but also for its planning features. And so this is something that's student facing and allowing students to really kind of take more control over their, over their plan and allow them to do some of that pre-planning before meeting with advisors. So there's less time in those advising meetings being spent kind of looking up classes, looking up programs, looking up what will fit, and more time saying, okay, I see you've planned this out. Why are you interested in this? And kind of giving them an opportunity again for the transactional conversations. So the image on the screen right now is how we have, or how some of that planning works. So students can log on, they can kind of see it broken out quarter by quarter, year by year. They can drag and drop, and something that is really great is they can test out different majors, see how those would fit with their, with their overall plan, see how it would fit with courses they've already taken. Additionally, students not only have this planning view right now, they also have the degree audit view where they can see, what classes would fulfill particular requirements. Whereas in our former system, that information firstly wasn't student facing, and secondly, even for the advisors, they wouldn't necessarily see the whole list of classes without referring back to the catalog. So then to also address kind of your question about retention, really what we're looking at for this is we've had a lot of focus recently on our 6-year graduation rate. And so with that in mind, it's for us less about retaining students in that first year, but more about making sure that they are able to graduate in a timely fashion. And a lot of that just comes back to, are they able to plan correctly to make those choices their first, second year that will really allow them to stick with the needed progress towards degree. And so being able to kind of test out these different plans, different classes, and see that laid out gives them a lot more capability for that long-term planning, gives them tools that will allow them to do that.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll talk a little bit more about that in the engagement section more too. So thank you for sharing that perspective. Let's do our first poll now. So let's see how we can do that. Here, right. So let's ask the audience like how they feel about this. So I'm going to launch the poll now. Okay, so first, like, what systems are you using right now on campus, and how is it supporting the advising and retention efforts today? Okay, I'll give it like another maybe 20 seconds to fill this out. Okay, I think we have results. Let's see if we can want to wait. Okay, so let's end the poll and share the results. So as you can see, it's very interesting. So that most people have just used SIS built-in system from our audience. And a significant population, like 18% of the audience, still using manual work to do that job. And then how much is it supporting their retention roles? It seems like majority of people feel like it's somewhat supporting, but a lot more can be done. So that's what our audience is thinking about this question. Okay, let's moving on to our first theme, which is data integrity. Right. So I'm going to start with Kim on this. Kim, you did this project thrice now. Okay. How do you, first of all, what's the importance of data accuracy and completeness in the degree audit, and how did you ensure that the data was, like, how do you ensure that?
that's funny you would mention that, because that's one of the biggest hurdles is if departments don't feel comfortable, if advisors and faculty don't feel comfortable with the data, then they'll resort to, you know, a big chief tablet and a piece of paper and pencils, you know, and they will start filing these things somewhere where they can't be found, and they don't share them with the students. So it's critical for the end user that they have complete confidence in the system. And one of the issues that we ran into, I mentioned that we purchased a third-party system to try and track students. And even though we gave SIS data directly from our student information system to that system, the way it treated it was different than the way people were used to seeing it in the degree audit. So they were getting different results. And so we would have faculty calling us saying, okay, I'm working with this student, but you know, the information in the degree audit isn't matching what I'm seeing in my other platform. And so again, there was immediate distrust of the other system, and therefore, like I said, it was not widely used at all, because they didn't feel that they had confidence in the results that were being posted. But the other thing is the greater confidence level they have, the more they feel that the information is reliable, then the more they'll use it. Right. And so when you get all of that data out there into a system, in this case, the degree audit system, then that improves the reliability of the data that you can pull out of it. So as you're going in and mining data and trying to answer critical questions for the campus, such as, you know, how many students still need this class, or, you know, what's our demand going to be for, you know, this particular major or this course in the coming semesters, if, you know, only 20% of the population of your campus is fully invested in using the audit, then your results in data mining are going to be abysmal. But if you have a higher usage rate on the campus and people, again, have a high confidence level with it, then you can pull more reliable data and have a better decision-making tool available to you.
Right, absolutely. Tim, your perspective, I know one of your priorities on campus have been to go paperless, and this time, like, you have to go paperless because of, like, nobody's in the office, especially when it comes to exceptions and transfer credits, which typically messes up the accuracy of these degree audit report. What efforts has University of Utah done in terms of making sure the transfer credits and exceptions are done accurately? And how much of that is paper-based versus paperless?
Well, Sabih, I'm proud to say that 3 years ago, the Office of the Registrar took over this function from admissions, so it's getting better. And it needed to be, because it was, and I'm not trying to throw admissions under the bus, but we did not have an integrated system to either evaluate courses for for articulation and so forth. We do within the state of Utah, because we have a system of higher ed here within Utah. So the 8 public institutions here in Utah, we do very well with articulation and so forth. But we have students from many, many other universities other than the 8, schools here in the state of Utah. So we have used the college source products. We've used their transfer equivalency system tests, and we've used, we've really beefed up our articulation practices and so forth. So that's been like I said, we're beginning our 3rd year. So for the last 2 years, we started with all of the internal or in-state schools. We then went to our top 20 feeder schools, and now we're expanding to international as well. So you are absolutely correct. Articulations, exceptions, data, and just so students can pull up that degree audit and take a look at it and say, okay, it does make sense. I've had this course and it meets this. Right now, I hate to tell you, but we've had over probably around 30,000 exceptions made in our degree audit system a year. And wow. I am absolutely committed that that is not a good practice, because student A may get an exception for a course they took at X university. Student B took the same course and didn't get that exception. That is no way to do business. So we're on many fronts trying to, take care of the integrity issue and making sure we're using, as I've said to my university community, we're finally entering the 21st century, 20 years into it, and that's not anything to be overly proud of, but we're getting there, and thank goodness finally, and it's not too late. So now this whole nother, initiative that we have to then build in all this other extra, not just courses, but extra kinds of things and integrate that into a system, that's going to be a high challenge for us. So, and that's why we're glad we're at the table, but it's not going to be an easy lift by any means.
Absolutely, absolutely. Emily, I know same thing goes for you. Your office manages exceptions at University of Chicago. As you did this transition, I mean, I know this, but I would love our audience to learn that. As you did this transition from an SIS-based system to Stellic, how did that change your accuracy of reports, and especially around exceptions? If you can share more thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for UChicago, the advising office is the one that handles exceptions and transfer credit. So luckily it's pretty centralized. But with our old audit system, it was through PeopleSoft, it was a very manual process. So essentially, a student would need to get approval from a department for a particular exception or permission, give it to their advisor. Their advisor would have to submit a request, and then the records team in the advising office would manually go and redirect that class. So it was resulting in a multiple step process, a lot of paperwork, and that would also result in kind of a very long turnaround between when, say, the student actually received permission from an academic department for a particular path and when it was reflected on the actual audit. And so something like that was, okay when the audit was just advisor facing and advisors kind of knew where it was in the step. But with shifting to something that's much more student facing, obviously wanted to kind of streamline that and make it as accurate as possible as soon as possible. And so something, I guess, two big points that kind of stand out to me is the programming capabilities in the Stellic degree audit are significantly more flexible and dynamic than what was available in our other ones. So we're now able to program for a lot more types of degrees, so we don't have to do as much manual processing. And also there's the ability to, for the way that it's set up in our office is once a student gets permission for a particular path that maybe isn't programmed in, their advisor can, within the platform, go in and request that a course be moved. So it cuts out a lot of that paperwork and the turnaround is much faster. And that way students are going to see their degree reflected accurately in their planner and their degree audit with a much faster turnaround. And I think that is something that really help kind of build the relationship between the student and advisor, and even the student and the degree audit, feeling like they can trust that it's accurate information and update it in a timely fashion.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me ask the audience the same question and see like how accurate and let's see if we can ask this question here. So launch poll. Yes, so how accurate and complete your degree progress reports are right now on campus? So let's see what attendees have to say about that. We are doing great on time, by the way, like halfway into the session and we are halfway into the points. That's great. Okay, I'll give it another 10 seconds. Okay, so let's end the poll and share the results. So as it seems like most people have almost accurate and complete audit, but there is a equal amount of like people who have either perfectly over audit and significant inaccuracy. That's very insightful to see. And I'm wondering like how do people get there? So it's really exciting. So let's talk about the next topic. Let's say we have this almost accurate and complete audit on campus, and talk about engagement on the platform. So I'll start off on this question, understanding from the perspective of student, and then we will see the advisor side in a second. So Emily, from your perspective, tell me a little bit about like, how do you build trust in the community, right? I mean, when you are moving the system, both for students and advisors, how do you tell them like this system, you have to now transition? And like, what does the change management look like since you were like leading that on campus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for us, again, this is the first time we ever had anything remotely student facing as far as tracking degrees or tracking degree audits. And so a lot of it, as far as engagement in the beginning, is just making sure students were aware that it exists. So we did some advertising around the rollout of the degree audit, and also tried to get in front of some of the things with published some FAQs on our website, and tried to make it as transparent as possible, what things were in progress, what things were under development, that kind of thing. And I think, again, it was something that students were asking for, and I'm sure this is similar at many of your institutions, but student word of mouth, I think, works better than any kind of actual advertising push we could have done. And so as students had access and started seeing it and realizing what they could do, it really started to kind of take off as students were showing their friends and talking about it. Additionally, because this was also replacing the old auditing system that advisors were using, we had to get the advisors on board. Essentially, this was the tool they were going to use to do all of their degree planning with their students, all of the graduation clearances. And so with that, it was really incorporating the advisors who are going to be using it every day in the rollout process. We had a working group of full-time advisors who we would kind of give early access to, have them test out, give us feedback. And then when we were kind of building the audits and getting those different majors and programs in there, just making sure that we're really responsive as they maybe caught bugs or things we missed. And I think overall, especially because we were moving from, again, such an admin-facing system to something that now advisors know their students are seeing it, and it's something that can really be a really useful tool as far as not only talking about degree planning, but talking about things kind of beyond that, not having to take up so much time with hunting down what course is taught which quarter. It's been something that has, I think, engagement has really grown, especially as we're really shifting to use it as our sole kind of auditing tool. And then one more thing I'll quickly say is we've also started rolling this out to academic departments and admins in the different majors. And this is something that we started with a pilot group of about 10 different departments, and have gotten great feedback from them. Again, it seems like what the bottom line is, what everyone wants to be able to see the same thing and be on the same page, so that they know that they're sharing the correct information and they're receiving the correct information. So I think, yeah, I'll stop there, but yeah, engagement's really kind of picking up.
Okay. Yeah, and I think, so same question for you, Kim. Like when you talk about templates and like pathways, you have to have advisor buy-in, right? For that, if they're not engaged, like these templates will get outdated pretty quickly. So tell me about like, how did you improve engagement, or how do you make sure advisors are actually engaged with the platform?
Fortunately, our advisors and our students have had access to a degree audit system forever. So at least for 20 years, they've all been able to log in 24/7 and see the degree audit. However, now they have a responsibility to actually do something with it. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that we apply that initial template or that outline to every student, that's only half the story. And so in meeting with the advisor, then the student and the advisor have to fill out the rest of the courses. And so they must make that plan complete for us to be able to utilize the data. And so we roped in a couple early adopters, if you will, some champion departments, and said, look, we know you do a great job with advising, and we know that you can take off with this product and really show the rest of the campus what can be done once you complete all of the information. And so they've actually mandated that all of their students have a complete plan by the end of their freshman year. And so because of that, we have then been able to, again, harvest that data and provide back to them reports that allow them to make good decisions as they move forward. And we've shared that with other departments on campus, showing what's possible once you fully utilize the product.
Okay. And are students engaged in this process? Like, how are you making sure students actually adopt something like this?
Yeah. Again, I think from the very basic standpoint, students can see the audit and see what they've done and where they need to go. And so that's always been, the limited access that's available. It doesn't really go much further than that. But now that they have these planners, I think that it does help them visualize, what I'm going to be doing 2 summers from now, and should I plan a study abroad, and what about my internship? Let's work that in so I can be better prepared to make all of these things happen. And of course, we all know that research has shown that if you provide students with a plan that they can see the end of the road,
Right.
that they do better. And they're more likely to complete a degree program if they can visualize what needs to be done when, and it's all in one place. So that's actually, the goal is to help them achieve their degree, if that's what they're after, or complete whatever credential they're after.
Makes sense. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, Tim, before we talk about reporting with you, let's start with poll and see like how the engagement has been with systems like these on campus. I let you guys also answer that question. So let's go to engagement poll. Launch the poll. So first, what percentage of students are regularly using a degree audit system? And if they are not engaged, what is the reason you think why it's not engaged, and how engaged are the advisors? So this one I'll give like maybe 45 seconds since there are 3 questions here. Okay, I believe we have some answers here. So let me end the poll. This time I'll just share the results after the call since we are 15 minutes to the end of it. So let me just end this and move to the next topic. Reporting. So Tim, since for you, like planning and the degree audit progress itself is separate, I want to start with you when you think about like reporting. What reports are you getting out of these systems, and what purposes these reports are fulfilling in terms of student retention and engagement?
Well, just typically, we're using the degree audit to, monitor progress toward a degree with courses only. Conceptually, we want to go much broader than that. But we are currently mining data term by term. We're monitoring, who is within 30 hours of finishing their degree, who are within 15 hours, who's not applying for graduation, who's completed a degree and has not applied for graduation. All of these things to actually get students across the finish line. So we're using the metrics, as well as we're mining this data for other incentives for students. In terms of financial assistance, offering scholarships and so forth, trying to get them, across that finish line sooner and absolutely to get them completed. We're also doing outreach for students who've left us. and are within X amount of hours, and saying, why did you leave when you're within 15 hours of earning that degree? How can we get you to come back, and what incentives, either financial or making sure that we're offering the courses at the times and points when you need them. So we're doing a lot of initiatives, and actually COVID did a lot of things even internally for us to say, are we disincentivizing some students, with fees and other things in getting them across the finish line? So we're taking kind of a kinder and gentler approach to all of this to make sure that we're assisting them, that we're not creating the roadblocks, but that we're taking their hand and getting them across that line, in a way that's a partnership and not, a barrier.
Makes sense. And which offices are you working with when it comes to reports about degree progress? What offices are looking for that information?
We work with the Office of Undergraduate Studies, the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. We even, again, I hate to put all of this out there in a public webinar, but one thing we did even at the end of spring, because we were so concerned that COVID, had impacted students very negatively, we went through, and of all those that applied for graduation, we took a look at their general ed and said, if they weren't complete, we looked at and looked to see, why were you not complete? Is there something that generally you met the spirit of these requirements? And, something just happened that didn't, not that we gave anything away, because we didn't, but we took a fine-tooth comb with making sure that there were no barriers, that we didn't, because of this pandemic and the upheaval of going online in mid-semester during spring term. And we've done that for summer as well. And like I said, it really kind of opened the pages for us to really look internally to see how are we assisting students and what data should we be mining to make sure that we're being as proactive as we can. Right,
absolutely. Absolutely. And so Kim, asking the same questions from you, what reports are you generating about degree progress? How are you generating them? And who are you sharing that with?
One of the key reports that we identify students who are off track. And so if they they're supposed to be taking a course this semester and they drop it, or they don't enroll for it or whatever, then that sets literally a little flag in the degree audit, and we can pull students who have, 2 flags or 3 flags, and then notify the student and their advisor that there appears to be need for a conversation perhaps about, is the student interested in maybe changing their degree program and that would better align with the courses that they're taking, or did they misunderstand, what needed to be taken or what. But so that ability to flag students who are off track is one of the biggest goals that we had. The other things, we have kind of an interesting requirement. One of our colleges in their constitution, they require a list of all of the substitutions and exceptions that were made for students in their programs. So that meant we had to devise a method of data entry, because the registrar's office does all of those exceptions and substitutions on the degree audit. And so we had to identify a method of uniformly entering that data so that we could pull it off in a report that made sense for that particular college. And so we do provide that to them every year as well. And then we also have a report that tells departments how many students are going to need a particular class. All of that is based, of course, on the planner being completely filled out. And so we don't harvest data from the degree audit itself per se, but because we wouldn't know, when did they plan to take advanced accounting? Well, if they have it listed in the planner, then we can say, you have X number of students that are going to be required to take advanced accounting, and it looks like they're planned to take it in the fall of 22.
Right, makes sense. And getting these reports, how much effort is that? Tell me more about that.
Well, unfortunately, it requires IT staff on our campus. So none of the staff in the registrar's office has the ability to pull the data out of our system. And so we have to engage the developers in our IT area to help us harvest that data and provide reports back to the department. So from that standpoint, it's it's limited us on what we can do, and we cannot do what I call ad hoc reporting. So if somebody just says, gee, I'd really like to know, we're thinking of discontinuing this course because the faculty member that normally taught, you know, Greek women in history has left the campus and we're not going to teach it anymore. We want to know how many students still have that as a part of their degree audit. You know, we can't do those kinds of things.
Okay. Emily, your perspective on reporting, like as an advising office, like what reports are you looking for, either from the registrar office or other places, that talks about student progress and drives your, you know, your initiatives?
Yeah, so as far as reporting, I think the thing that our office uses most frequently is the advising office is the one that does all of the graduation clearances. So we really make a lot of use over from reports that say, you know, remaining requirements, how many out of, you know, how many courses in this major do fourth year students have left. So really using that as kind of a starting point to I guess, engage with students and make sure that we can redirect students onto the right path if it looks like they have maybe 8 courses left, but only room for 4 more in their 4 years. We also engage or use GPA reports and reporting, especially at the end of the quarter, to see, you know, are there students below certain GPA thresholds that need to have kind of a you know, either an academic probation meeting or some kind of check-in with their advisor. Something that we are hoping to use a little more in the future, especially within the Stellic platform, is being able to look at academic progress, looking at, you know, does a student at the end of their first year have this many credits, and hoping to incorporate that kind of in the advising model. You know, is that a metric where we need to start setting up required meetings for students who are, you know, not hitting certain metrics. So really, as far as reporting, what we're mostly focused on is progress towards degree, GPA, and kind of that academic standing aspect of it.
Makes sense. Okay. Let's see what, and so I'm hearing different things. I'm hearing course demand, exceptions, degree progress completion, things like that. So we have a poll for that. So let me launch that and see what the audience has to say about that. So what type of reporting is your highest priority? Okay, we have some results here. So let's end this poll. And again, I'll share the results later, just in the interest of time. Moving on to the last topic for the day, the future. So Tim, I'll start with you. What do you think the future of degree audit looks like? Like, you know, I asked this question earlier too, like, I mean, in your opinion, what's that, like, you know, dream come true degree audit system that you imagine? And what's and how can that impact student experience and retention? So, okay, Tim.
Well, thank you, Sabih. I think for us, it's going to be a hybrid of what we currently have and the 2 visionary ideas that we hope to have for it. And that will be a planning element and a co-curricular and much more holistic accounting of the experiences that you've had, as well as, and by putting that experiential component within our degree audit, I think that will, in a visual way, give students some accountability of what they've done in different categories. If they're talking about community, talking about impact that they've made, talk about transformation, you know, as we are, you know, collecting this information in these kind of compartments, it will make the students take a step back and to really assess how are they becoming this holistic student, not just courses and grades and completion, but how have I really transformed as a human being and as a student at the University of Utah. And that really is coming, you know, the whole concept of the major maps. That's You know, that's what's, you know, is intended to give them a visual of this is what it means to be a student here. And this is what the expectations are for you to take full advantage of. And I think that is going to be a selling element. And really students are early indicators show us that they're very much interested. You know, we went from a paper kind of concept of, you know, kind of these hard copy maps to now these integrated within the system. And now the next thing will be, you know, a degree audit that will incorporate these experiences and be able to quantify them. And you know, we're just hoping that by the time they get, you know, finished, they're going to have a very, you know, very robust, you know, a piece of data that they can show someone and show themselves mostly of all that they've done and all they've accomplished.
Absolutely. It's like a holistic, accountable journey that
Right.
you know the student can create. Kim, your thoughts on that? Like, what do you think that like that future of these systems look like from your perspective?
I think people are at a point where they want more from a degree audit system. I mean, they don't want just a little checklist that says you need to take a college algebra. Okay, that's great. You've done that. There's so much data that can be gleaned from a student's program and what they've done and how well they've done. And so institutions can benefit immensely if there's a way to capture that data and summarize it into you know, helpful reports for the institution, for the leadership, but also from the student's perspective. You know, students should be able to do more in an audit than just, again, see that little check mark that requirement is complete. So you know, in addition to, you know, enrolling directly from the audit, I think you know, students would like to see, you know, the course syllabus and what the expectations are and for these courses. And so even though an audit might tell you what the prereqs are for the course, I think, you know, we need to go way beyond that to help students really get a picture of what it is that they're going to be engaged in if they enroll in that course. And then of course for advisors, you know, they want a smart system. You know, they don't want to have to look up each individual student and say, okay, you know, Susie missed this requirement. They want summary data that helps them do their job more efficiently.
Right.
You know, they have a ton, in our case, they have a ton of students that report to them for advising, and they need a system that works for them instead of, you know, them having to do all of the work of setting up each advising appointment and looking at each student's audit. So they need access to more data on all of their advisees. So the audit needs to be, it needs to be more intuitive.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hear from the advising office then. Emily, like, what do you think the future of degree audit holds for you?
Yeah, again, for us, this is the first, really the first year where we had anything student facing at all. So what we're really looking for kind of moving forward in the future is really getting that student engagement, kind of getting that really collaborative relationship between advisors and students going. Wanting students to be able to not only see the degree audit, but be able to plan for it, be able to test out what would it look like if I was this major, and really kind of give them more of a sense of ownership over their degree, over what they're choosing and over how they map it, and really, again, giving them a sense of ownership and accuracy as they assess, like, how far am I in my degree? You know, can I shift this course around? Can I graduate early?
Right.
So I think really just, again, making sure it's as transparent, as student facing as possible, and really using that as a way to really kind of deepen that student advising relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think, yeah, not be spending the time with an advisor asking like those questions that can be answered otherwise. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. We have the final question here. And then while we are doing that, let me just like wrap up the presentation. So let me launch the poll. And this is a question that I was wondering. We talked about like 3 different models on this call. As you think about improving these systems, what do like our participants you know, prefer? Do you want to build a system in-house? Do you want to replace an existing system with a completely new system? Or does it make more sense to adopt these additional layer that sits on top of their current system? So I'm curious to hear like how they feel you know, about that. Okay, and while we're doing that, thank you so much, Tim, Kim, and Emily for joining this conversation. This has been great. I know we have few questions, and I will try our best to get our participants answer those questions through emails, so we can share their responses, in our post webinar report. I'm sorry, we ran kind of a little bit over time. But this has been great. I mean, just like hearing perspective from advisor's perspective, registrar, and then someone who has built something themselves, someone who have enhanced it or replaced it. It has been a very insightful session for myself to just learn and understand not just the importance of degree audit, but the implications of it, and how do you make that happen. So thank you everyone for sharing that perspective.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. I'm gonna end this poll, and then we will share the recording and the survey results and the answers to the questions, hopefully, in the next week or so. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thank you for joining the session. Okay, bye.
Thank you.